the good old Grateful Deadcast, the official podcast of the Grateful Dead. I'm Rich Mahan with Jesse Jarno, exploring the music and legacy of the Grateful Dead for the committed and the curious. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Deadheads, welcome to Season 6 of the good old Grateful Deadcast. I'm your co-host, Rich Mahan. As always, thank you very much for tuning in. This week we have an encore episode for you. Originally airing in Season 2, A Visit to Planet Drum highlights a conversation my co-host Jesse Jarno and I had with Mickey Hart. And as it's Mickey's 79th birthday on September 11th, happy birthday, Mickey, and Mickey has a new album out with Planet Drum entitled In the Groove, we thought now would be a great time to revisit this special episode. And stay tuned later in Season 6 because we're working on a special 50th anniversary episode about Mickey's first solo album, Rolling Thunder. Bop on over to dead.net/deadcast and check out all of our past episodes, including the complete Seasons 1 through 5, and you can link from there to your favorite podcasting platforms so you can listen where you like to listen. Please help our podcast by subscribing, hitting that like button, and if the spirit moves you, leave us a review. Thank you very much. Have you checked out the transcripts that we now have for many of our episodes in Seasons 1 through 5? Head over to dead.net/deadcast-index and click the transcript link on the episode you'd like to explore. And thanks to everyone who has contributed their stories at stories.dead.net. A fair amount of you have made it into the podcast, so thanks very much for your input. Were you at any of the Madison Square Garden shows in 81, 82, or 83? Well, then head over to stories.dead.net and record yours today. And remember, if you leave a voice recording of yourself versus a text, you're much more likely to get added into the podcast. Speaking of MSG boys, there a cool new Grateful Dead box set headed our way. In and Out of the Garden, Madison Square Garden, 81, 82, 83 boasts 17 CDs from 6 previously unreleased concerts recorded live in New York City at Madison Square Garden between 1981 and 1983. Also available is Madison Square Garden, New York, 3981, a 3-CD set breakout featuring one full show from the box. Both titles are available September 23rd and are available for pre-order now at dead.net. Also new to explore is the Grateful Dead server on Discord. Download the Discord app on your mobile device or computer and search for the public Grateful Dead server and click the join button. Find the Deadcast channel and chat with fellow heads about the latest episodes you just listened to. Jesse and I are on there from time to time, so we hope to see you over there at Discord. But wait, there's more. All of you musicians out there are going to love this one, announcing Playing in the Band, an interactive web-based mixing board that allows you to jam with the Grateful Dead. You can mute the channel of your choice and fill in for any member of the Grateful Dead, or press the solo button on any channel to listen and learn or duet. We have 5 songs from the 8/27/72 Veneta, Oregon show ready for you to explore and jam along with at dead.net/playing in the band. Well, Mickey Hart is our guest today on this encore episode of the Deadcast, and there's a lot to celebrate, including Mickey's 79th birthday and his new album with Planet Drum, In the Groove. Before we hand it over to Jesse, let's sample a little bit of one of the tracks on In the Groove to lead into the episode. Here's Fill the Glass.
Mickey Hart needs no real introduction to most of our listeners. Starting in the 1970s, Mickey created an adventurous discography, an incredible universe of sound that includes ancient percussion, contemporary electronics, field recordings, work with the Library of Congress, noise, drones, monks, heartbeat, sonifications, songwriters, soundtracks, and of course, the beam, an instrument of his own making. Also, he was a drummer for the Grateful Dead. Mickey Hart joined the Grateful Dead in 1967, adding a second drum kit alongside Bill Kreutzmann, and soon a whole lot more. He would consistently help push the Dead's envelope, a musical vote for exploration in all its forms. And so we are beyond delighted to welcome to the good old Grateful Deadcast, Mickey Hart, here to check in on what he's been up to lately, and also to travel the spaceways of his many projects, going back to the days of American Beauty.
This is, of course, a different season, not a touring season, but it's a composing and studio season, and season to take, just to take a look at musically what you're doing and where you want to go and so forth. And it's been a season of drones for me. I've been working seriously with drones. I'm doing some with Deepak Chopra, some drones with him, and working on the next Planet Drum incarnation with Zakir Hussain online. So this has been really an adventure. We call it the Sonic Tonic Club. Yeah. So it's I think it's the 181st edition of the Sonic Tonic Club today. So or 86, 81, something like that. But it's in the 180s.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a serious thing. So the Sonic Tonic Club meets almost every day, and we exchange drones and work on material, just investigate the rhythmscape more and more and how we use spatial processing in the music, just finding new spaces in music. That's really, I love to discover stuff. That's the most exciting thing, is to create something from nothing, or something, that's an amazing feeling. So that's what I've been doing, and also having actually a very fulfilling time with this virus on the loose, actually, composing wise. So yeah, I'm at it.
That was Mickey Hart playing the Beam, recorded October 16th, 1989 at Meadowlands in New Jersey, on the Grateful Dead live album Nightfall of Diamonds. The Beam is a girder strung with piano wires and set to an open tuning, a giant Pythagorean monochord. For good reason, Mickey Hart is fond of playing it very, very loudly. It's the source material for many of the drones Mickey's been making lately.
It's all about the Pythagorean monochord. It's all about the music of the spheres. It's about Pythagoras, who gave us the tempered scale. He also studied the revolutions of the sun and the moon, and he gave it numerical equations, and it's all entwined in the beam. And the beam uses low frequency. It moves brainwaves into certain states. And so this is all about the brain. The brain's the master clock. What the brain says, you do. So that's where the beam is headed. It's kind of like a super highway of senses, if you will. When you hit the drone, you hit the beam, you go into the zone, you go into the now, into the moment. That's where everybody wants to go. But with the drone, it's instantaneous. Yeah, so the depths at which it's going is fantastic. We've gone down to, we can go down to 15 cycles, 16.
Whoa, super low.
Yeah, 16 cycles. Yeah, it's really low. So it really moves you.
Right.
It immerses you in it. So it's a new kind of experience. You have to have a super system to be able to even attempt to be able to do it like I do it, or I do it in Dead and Company, where I can go down to 16 cycles, 17, 18, 19, because they read it at the board out there in the arena or the stadium. You never know how low it can go because of the resonance of the place you're in. And so, but it does move you in a way that nothing else does. It just totally takes you into the moment. Quicker than music, actually. Really does. It just drops you right in. If you let yourself go into it, you just kind of melt into it. I got 3,000 subwoofers out there, whatever. I can get really loud, So probably the loudest human in the world, I would say. Some people have said. And I don't doubt them, especially at these depths. Hearing the arena, hearing the whole place kind of vibrate, and you can feel all the souls with you. You can feel everybody. And so playing in my studio, no matter how good it is, still not like the get off you get, live when you know people are there and we are vibrating together. I mean, at once. That's a beautiful feeling when people really take that moment to really take account of it all. It gets you really high.
Mickey immediately answered one of our questions. If he just plays the beam at home, the answer may not surprise you.
Well, I do most of the time, almost every day. I have many beams now. They've had babies. So I have, I'm the fortunate one here. So I have many beams, and they all are different tunings, and they're all, some small, some large. So Pythagoras was right. If Pythagoras came in, he would be dancing and smiling, and he would say, "I told you so."
Have you ever gotten to play a beam ensemble? Like have multiple beams playing at once?
Oh, yeah, I have the ability to do that now. Yeah, they all sync. So you can have them all singing at once, and you get to a place right before feedback, and you just hang in there, and they play themselves.
And they just sustain right at that point.
You could just walk out of the room.
It's like that scene in Spinal Tap where he goes, "Yeah, you can go out and have a bite, come back, it'll still be ringing."
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you get it at the sweet spot, it's not easy. You gotta get right at that crack in the sky. And then the beams sing by themselves, their own song, every day different.
The beam's origins are in the early 70s.
The beam there was a fellow in San Francisco. He played a beam, like a beam instrument. And I had seen it once in Golden Gate Park. I was with Dan Healy, I think. And I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Francisco Lupica. Yes, that's right. Excuse me.
Sorry to interrupt, Mickey. We were both remembering the name of Francisco Lupica. Playing as Frank Davis, he drummed for a number of 60s bands, including the Loading Zone, who shared bills with the Dead, and later the group Shanti. He put out a private press LP called The Cosmic Beam Experience in 1976. He explained the basic principle on The Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder.
Now from California and from another world, here is Francisco Lupica, who is the creator of the Cosmic Beam Experience. How have you been, as they say, all right?
Pretty good.
Okay. For those who didn't view our past programs, physically, what is the Cosmic Beam? Just tell what this piece of metal is back
Okay,
here.
this instrument here is called the Cosmic Beam, which is a steel girder from a semi-truck. And it has electromagnetic pickups there, if you could see those copper.
Gotcha.
I had known about the Pythagorean monochord, but I never saw an electric monochord. And he was a big, giant iron beam. It would take 2 or 3 people just to, it was huge. And he would set up in the park, in Golden Gate Park, and just drift and play around, with bells and things. And so I decided to build a super version of that, a 747 version of it. So it's taken years, and it's probably the most powerful percussive tool, drone tool on the planet. It really is powerful.
The instrument has a fairly wide and tangled family tree, ready for beam scholars to chart out. Lupica actually credits a musician named John Lavelle, of whom I can find little trace. If anyone knows anything else, please get in touch. Mickey developed his own 747 version of the beam to create sound for the Apocalypse Now soundtrack in 1978. A few years later, though, a different beam, the Blaster Beam, as invented by Craig Huxley, would become a Hollywood staple, a source for sound effects in Star Trek adventures, IMAX movies, pop songs like Beat It, and other pieces of blockbuster entertainment. Mickey Hart built his beam at the Barn, his studio and retreat in Novato.
I was thinking how special, it was like a crucible, the Barn was. I would leave it open, and we'd leave the beam in the middle of the barn, and we'd just leave it just ready to go all day long. And I would just drift back and forth, smoke a little, go back and play, smoke a little, go back and play.
In other parts of the good old Grateful Deadcast, we focused on the Dead's work at some of the era's most known classic studios, including Pacific High, where they recorded Working Man's Dead, and Wally Heider's in San Francisco, where they made American Beauty. But over the course of 1970, a new studio was taking shape up in Novato, on the land that Mickey Hart leased from the city for $250 a month. The barn would become one of the era's classic, almost forgotten studios, with a fairly breathtaking array of projects recorded there over the next years, and it became a place for sonic experimentation.
And you'd see everybody come to the barn, just come, jam, leave, everybody. I remember John Cipollina from Quicksilver was there a lot, and David Crosby, Stephen Stills, Jerry, of course, Bob, Phil, the band.
Sure.
And it was just a place to, to go to experiment, to find new things, new techniques. But also, it was the scene of the famous 4-day and 4-night drum marathon. We kept it going with the Digger Rhythm Band, 4 days and 4 nights. There was a groove going. And
wow.
That was an amazing moment in the barn's history. The rhythm band was in 1975, 74, 75, 73, 74, 75, something like that. Yeah, and so we were all together making that record, and then we decided to go long. And once you go long like that, you go into the trance. So you have to expect those kind of situations. Yeah, we kept it going. Even if it was a duo, you went to the bathroom, you had to have a tambourine.
Amazing.
You get to do things like that. You can never do that in the studio. So
right.
The barn it was a crucible. It was an alembic. It was a place for things to be created that could not be created anywhere else. And it was home. And there was this big tin barn over there. And Dan Healy actually built it. He was the architect of that, and Johnny DeFonseca, those old friends of mine. And I remember we built an echo chamber with Keen cement. There's really a rare kind of cement that you had to do for the real echo chamber. And David Crosby came over, and we put him in the echo chamber to play with his guitar, his beautiful acoustic guitar. And he just the chamber itself. So we were just in the chamber listening to his big D5 or whatever it was. And, God, all kinds of stuff. Everybody was there, Hell's Angels, pranksters.
Yeah.
All of everybody who was in the scene kind of just came and went. A lot of people lived there over the years, like Billy and different people lived there. Gee, I don't remember how many years I actually had it, but I never owned it. I just rented it from the city, and they let me be. I think they were afraid. I really do. One time they asked us to come out. They asked us to come out. Come out with your arms, up, and we said no way. Crosby had just bought $500 worth of ammo, and we were doing target practice, and they thought a militia was happening there, but we weren't going to go out, and they didn't come in. That was another interesting moment, in the history of the barn. Everybody, there was a lot of guns around, let us say, okay? And, in those days, those wild days. And people wanted to get to use their guns. So there was a big, giant creek bed. And we just started setting up, actually with cymbals at first.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah, me and Billy set up some cymbals. That was the first targets. And so it started getting really popular. And this one day, there were many days.
Did you ever trip out on the effect of different calibers on the cymbals and the different sounds it made?
Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah, of course. Especially if you're high on acid, everything becomes a whole other reality. but it was the percussiveness of it all
Yeah.
that we really loved, and the sound of them. And inside this little crater of a stream, you could really hear it just ring. So it was beautiful. But it also sounded like we were using giant weapons, but we were just using hunting rifles and shotguns and pistols and so forth.
With good amplification.
Yeah, really. We meant no one harm, that's for sure. Yeah, that land is sacred land. It's been, the Shoshone have been there. So, it was an important piece of spiritual property. So many people saw visions there. I myself saw Rolling Thunder picking this thing called yellow dock, which was he used for infections, to bring out the infections. And I looked out the window and I was kind of sick. And there he was picking yellow dock. And I thought he would come in, and he never came in. And I asked, why is Archie not coming in? And Archie's not here. He hasn't been here for a long time. But I was able to see him perfectly, it was just absolute. And I wasn't taking drugs at the time. So a lot of things happened there. It was a spiritually based place where people, kind of left their spirit there in some ways. And that's what that place was for, ritual. Ritual is really important, especially when we're starting a community. And so we were starting a community. And so you had to have it within your own community in order to give it. So we had to learn to do that. And that's where that came in on a larger scale.
The barn is where Fire on the Mountain was born. If you poke around with your favorite tape traders, you can find some recordings of Mickey rapping the original lyrics over the groove.
I think that was in 70, 71 or something like that or something. And that was, I had done the basic track, and Jerry came in and played. I think that David Freiberg might have even played bass from Quicksilver. Yeah, and then I started rapping it, and Hunter was outside writing the verses, and he was handing me verses as I was in the vocal booth. He was, so that was funny. And then there was a fire on the mountain right across from the barn on the hill. There was a grass fire, and all the kids were screaming, "There's a fire on the mountain!" And they go, "Oh, come on," So there really was. They went outside, and there was a fire on the opposing mountain. That was the rap version. Gary wanted me to sing it. I wanted him to sing it. He said, "You sing it." He said, "No, you do." I said, "No." Finally, I just, I prevailed.
On the technical end, one of the chief sonic realizers was longtime Dead engineer Dan Healy.
Reverb and delay was really rare in those days. You only had springs and really horrible sounding things. So Healy came up with an idea of putting exponential tubes. I think it was 32 milliseconds. One end was, it started with 24, then it got 24 inches, then it got 8 inches, and there was a track running down the center of it, and there was a locomotive on the track, and on the top of the locomotive was an RE15. It was a microphone, so we can control the length of sound by using the locomotive to get closer and closer to the speaker, which was on the other end broadcasting. So it was a delay. And so we had 32 or 62 and milliseconds. And that was a lot in those days. So yeah, Healy was brilliant. He built that, and he designed the echo chamber. So Healy was brilliant. He worked so hard on that. He came from Fairfax every day almost building that. It was really a labor of love.
Some of my favorite albums recorded at the barn were Robert Hunter's early solo efforts, including his 1974 Round Records debut, Tales of the Great Rum Runners, with contributions from Jerry Garcia, Keith and Donna Godchaux, and many other members of the Grateful Dead family. If you like the acoustic palette of American Beauty, I especially recommend it.
Annie laid her head down in the roses. She had ribbons, ribbons, ribbons in her long brown hair. I don't know, it must have been the roses. All I know, I could not leave her there.
We made the Hunter records too. That's right. Yeah. So I was the producer of Tales of the Great Rum Runners with the first one. And I think the second one was Tiger Rose, if I recall. And so me and Jerry did both of them there at the studio with Hunter. Those were good days. They were sweet, you know, Jerry and Bob working together and having fun and, and doing Bob's music. Hunter had just a charming musical sensibility. I mean, he wasn't really a musician per se, wasn't like a great player. He played great pipes. The Scottish pipes, he played that really well. But he made do. And, it was just a wonderful time. I don't know how long it took us to make that. It seems like it was really quick. But yeah, they were great records. And I just loved Hunter's versions of songs. I just loved it.
Tiger Rose from 1975 features the track Yellow Moon, which I think is the only example of Robert Hunter and Jerry Garcia playing alone in the studio on acoustic guitars.
Born, born, born upon the world, the restless heart keeps flying, trying to become the heart of home. Love, 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 it picks you up, spins you round, sits you right back down where you belong.
I think that was the one, or maybe it was Tiger Rose, where I covered all my drums with a sheet. And I played the drums really dry with a bed sheet over them, or something like that, taped around them in shape way. I kind of remember that. Jerry, it was like he taped me with gaffer's tape.
How did the sheet affect the way that the drums resonated?
Well, it cuts the resonance down tremendously. So you get a very dry sound. And if you can get dry and tone, then you can take that and put it in another processing easily. And you don't have to worry about the sound of the room or the drum ring or any of that. You can get real clean sound going into a signal processor. It's just another way of playing ball with the sound. That's what it's all about. It's a game in a way. You learn constantly, all the time, about acoustics. It's never ending.
When he wrote his first book, Drumming at the Edge of Magic, the barn became a site for a different kind of experimentation, as Mickey researched the history of percussion, making notes on index cards. In the barn, he began to arrange them.
They were 3x5 cards, actually, all hundreds and hundreds of them, all pinned to the wall, all around the barn. And they were the timeline of the recorded history of percussion, dating back to the Paleolithic. So I had a timeline, a storyline on 3x5s pinned to the walls. And at night I would light it up. It looked like we used to call it the anaconda. It was my information snake. And that's how I wrote the books. It was, the gathering of information, very much like you'd work on Pro Tools or, Ableton and all of these digital things. And that was in the analog world before computers. And so you'd have to write it down. I can hardly write now. I've been on the computer so long.
Of course, the most visible outlet for Mickey Hart's experimentation was the Grateful Dead, and especially the long segment each night that featured drums, percussion, and a lot of other sounds.
Every night was different, because that's one part of the show we don't talk about. You have to react there in the moment. So it's not rehearsed. It never was. We have suggestions sometimes, but not mostly. Back then, we would have the cooks bring out their pans and pots, and they would come up. God, we fried bacon during the solo back in the old days. That was a big solo, was when I fried bacon, and I would put the microphone into the fryer. Ramrod used to get a big slab of bacon and put it in my in the frying pan, electric frying pan, which was on Jerry's amp. or partially on it, on top of it. Well, Pigpen used to eat it.
I was going to say, man, who ate it?
That was the big part. He used to come over with drumsticks. They're like chopsticks. And he used to hey.
Wow.
Nice.
Oh man, that was just funny. And then there was this moment. It didn't get in the pan fast enough, so it wasn't frying. And nothing was happening. So I didn't think there was really any juice, any bacon in it. And I just turned it, flipped it over. I said, nah, I don't want this. And it all went on Jerry's twin. And it just dripping down Jerry's twin. and I'm looking at Ramrod. He's looking at me, and I'm saying, he goes, that's the end of bacon. And I go, okay, man. That's the end. Jerry never said a thing. He never said a thing. I think this was before Parrish and stuff. This is back in the old days.
It's not entirely clear when the Grateful Dead bacon era was. I've not yet detected any obvious frying sounds on tape. Feel free to send us likely candidates if you think you hear any sizzling. There are very few eyewitness accounts to the band's bacon jams, but the ones that exist seem to date from November 1970, which, as we learned in our Deadcast about Ripple, is a particular blank spot for decent-sounding tapes.
Then there was the era of the explosive era, where I had 12-gauge shotgun shells going off during St. Stephen. That was, we all thought that was brilliant.
Talk about your minute, talk about your ills. One man gathers what another man spills.
That was from Dick's Pick 16, recorded November 8th, 1969 at the Fillmore Auditorium. I always wondered what the deal was with the cannon. Or actually, two cannons.
Two starter cannons at my left foot. And they were both ganged as one. And there was a strap between them. So when I pushed my foot, I took my foot and I brought it back underneath the tripwire. Two starter cannons would go off simultaneously. It was in the St. Stephen, one man gathers what another man spills. And then, and so it got out of hand, and we stopped that too, just like bacon.
Just like bacon.
Now, the story of the cannons were, we were playing with Janice out there and somewhere in San Jose, and I was playing, and backstage, it was outside in the park, and Janice had played, and we were playing, and I heard this giant pow in the back behind the curtain, and I thought, they're just playing around, having fun with the cannons, they do that at times. And then I started smelling flesh, burning flesh, and so Ramrod was right there next to me, and he was on fire. His hair and his face was kind of on fire, and I said, what's, and he was there, and he was loading the cannons for me to use them. He was on fire, smelling, burning, and he was there at my feet still setting the cannons for the song St. Stephen. It was right before St. Stephen. So he came out there on fire, and I said, what is happening? What, you're on fire? And I started putting out his hair, and he said, well, they loaded the cannon without telling him. He used to load the cannon. They thought they were going to be nice, and they loaded the cannon. They didn't tell Ramrod. So when he pulled it off the stack of the equipment, he pulled it by the cord that was with chaining both of the cannons, and they both went off right there in his face. So he was there burning right there on my feet, and putting the 12 gauge into the starter cannons. And I said, that's the end of cannons. I said, well, that's the end of cannons. So that ended there, like bacon ended. He told me that bacon ended, and I told him that cannons ended, and everybody had a good time. but that shows you how great equipment man Ramrod was. He did it, he was doing what he had to do while he was burning. He's still, smoldering and flesh burning. I mean, you got to really go, you know, to beat that. I mean, like blood.
That was Time Beyond Reason, from Mickey's most recent solo album, 2017's Ramu, Random Access Musical Universe. The vocalist was A.V. Tare, sometimes known as Dave Portner, one-fourth of Animal Collective, a decidedly 21st century psychedelic group influenced by the Dead, among many, many other artists. The lyricist was Robert Hunter, who contributed one of his final batches of lyrics to the album. And the person connecting them was Mickey Hart, who's continued to push music further and further into the future from his vantage in the present.
Every day is a revelation, really. I try to make that a reality. I go into the studio pretty much every day, and maybe not weekends, but I go in there with the expectations of doing something incredible and miraculous and amazing, you know, transformative, something that will lift me and get me higher. And that's what music does. So, you know, that's what I go in there with, that, trying to make a better world, you know, by making yourself a little better person. That's kind of what music does. So you might say that's, you know, that's my therapist, you know, every day getting a hit of music, you know, at the appropriate level. What you're doing is you're searching around, you're foraging. Think about that. You're hunting, you're going through the woods, you know, that kind of thing, and you see something that's intriguing to you, and you go there, you do that. That thing leads you to another. So you're jamming all day long, and so that's how you want to go through a day. I mean, if you can't go out and do, you know, go play in front of people, you know, which is a wonderful experience. That's nothing like that. But you have to go into your music when you listen to it the same way. You say, wow, I'm going in, you know, this experience is going to get me high. It's going to make me better at whatever I want to do. That's the best it could be. You stay healthy and you can do music forever.
Mickey Hart, man. We'll leave with a little more from where we started. The main 10 for Mickey's first solo album, Rolling Thunder, released in 1972. The recording will hopefully get into a lot more with Mickey sometime down the road.
We have a bunch of great episodes planned for Season 6, so make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. Keep in touch with us by signing up for the official Grateful Dead email list at dead.net, and please keep those stories coming, especially any about Madison Square Garden in 81, 82, or 83, by recording an audio message at stories.dead.net. And don't forget to check out dead.net/playingintheband. Jam on! Executive producers for the Good Old Grateful Deadcast, Mark Pincus and Doran Tyson. Produced for Rhino Entertainment by Rich Mahan Productions and Jesse Jarno. Special thanks to David Lemieux. All rights reserved.